Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Have you ever ended up doing manual deployments and endless testing cycles? And all of this you have been doing manually, which is very time consuming and very tedious to do. Now, what if I told you that there's a way to change your software development workflow and free up so that you can focus on what truly matters? Let's talk about CI/CD pipelines. Now, they sound daunting, right? So, all those complex buzzwords and intricate processes can seem very overwhelming. But what if I told you that you could streamline your development and deployment, making it faster, more reliable, and less stressful? So, in this particular session, we will break down the complexity and also reveal the sheer power of Jenkins and GitLab in simplifying the automation process. Once again, before I start off with the session, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So, let's talk about CI/CD, which is the future of software development, right? So, CI/CD, it stands for continuous integration and continuous delivery or deployment. Now, why does this matter so much in today's fast paced software world? Well, traditionally, the development was slow. The code changes, used to pile up, and testing was a massive bottleneck. And the deployment itself was very risky, which often led to very dreaded events. Now, CI/CD flips that on its head. So it represents a fundamental shift towards automated software development. So instead of big, risky releases, we focus on small, frequent, and automated changes. Now, the benefits are huge. So you get a faster release cycle, so you can ship new features to your users in hours or days and not weeks or months. Then you'll have fewer bugs. So automated testing catches issues early, often before they even reach a human tester. And then you have the enhanced collaboration. So developers integrate their code frequently, and this can lead to fewer merge conflicts and a smoother workflow. So imagine you have a developer that pushes a small code change. Now, immediately, a automated pipeline kicks in, which will build the application, run all the test cases, and if everything passes, automatically deploy your change to a staging or even production environment. That's CI/CD in action, and it dramatically improves how we deliver the software. Now, let's talk about Jenkins. So, Jenkins, which is your CI/CD powerhouse. Now, when we talk about your CI/CD, one name that almost always comes up is your Jenkins. And this has been around for ages, and this is often called the CI/CD workhorse, and for a good reason. So, at its core, Jenkins is an open source automation server, and the main job of this is to orchestrate your software development processes. Now, this Jenkins will watch for changes in your code, then trigger any build stages, run your test cases, and even push your application to various environments. So, think of your Jenkins pipeline as a series of automated steps. For example, a typical pipeline might include these following steps. So you have the build stage. Now this is where you will compile your code into an executable application. Then you will have the test stage. Now this is where you will run your unit tests or your integration test or maybe your end-to-end test to ensure everything is working as expected. And then finally you'll have the deploy stage. Now this is where you will be pushing your tested application to a server, which can be in your cloud environment. So one of the Jenkins greatest strength is its massive ecosystem of plugins. So Jenkins is all about plugins. So there are thousands of plugins that allow Jenkins to integrate with almost any tool or any service you can imagine. It can be a version control system like Git. It can be a cloud platform like AWS, testing frameworks like JUnit or Selenium, and even notification tools like Slack notification. This extensibility makes Jenkins incredibly powerful and also customizable for almost any workflow you can think of. Now, let's talk about GitLab. Now, GitLab is the integration solution that we have. So, while Jenkins is a dedicated automation server, GitLab takes a different approach. It's an all in one DevOps platform that includes your version control, project management, and crucially, the powerful CI/CD capabilities all built in one single platform. And when we talk about the features of your GitLab, unlike Jenkins, where you install and configure everything separately, GitLab's CI/CD is baked directly into your repositories. So you can define your pipeline steps using a simple YAML file, which is your gitlab-ci.yaml, which will be right alongside your code. So this is the file where you will give the instructions for your various steps. Could be your build step, your testing step, your deploy step. All those instructions will be within this YAML file. So if GitLab has its own CI/CD, why would you use it with Jenkins? Right? So GitLab can be used as your CI/CDs, and why should I end up using Jenkins in addition to GitLab? Now, this is where the power of seamless integration comes in. Now, many organizations use GitLab as their primary source code management. So this is, you are only using it to manage your code and as a project management too. But they might already have a heavily invested Jenkins setup, which has your complex pipelines and your specific plugins, which you can't easily move. So, you already have the existing setup and you already have all of your pipelines set up, and it's difficult for you to move away from it. That's where you'll have your GitLab and Jenkins integration. So in such cases, we can have GitLab configured to trigger our Jenkins job whenever there is a code change. This allows you to leverage GitLab's excellent features and project visibility while still using Jenkins as your core automation engine. Now, beyond just triggering external tools, GitLab also offers robust native CI/CD automation features like Auto DevOps, which can automatically detect, build, test, deploy, and monitor your application with minimal configuration. It also includes integrated security scanning, like your dynamic application security testing, static application security testing. You can review the applications for every merge request and much more. And all of this can be done within a single platform. So, how do Jenkins and GitLab truly combine to form a powerful CI/CD collaboration? So, it's all about leveraging their strengths. So, GitLab acts as your single source of truth for your code and for your collaboration, whereas Jenkins performs all the heavy lifting, which is your complex pipelines and specialized automations. Now, enough talking. Let's see this powerful collaboration in action. We are going to set up a simple CI/CD pipeline for a very basic Node.js application. And our code will live in GitLab, and Jenkins will be our automation engine. So, building and deploying our app will be done via Jenkins. So here is the repo I have. I'll share the link to this in the description section so you can refer if you want. So first, let's talk about our application. So this is where we have our application. It's a tiny Node.js web server that just says, hello CI/CD, and this is a version for your demo application and deployed automatically via Jenkins and GitLab. Now this will be packaged in a Docker file so it can run anywhere, and crucially, we have two key files. So we have the Docker file. Now this is where we are telling Docker how to package our application into a portable image. So we are defining the base image, we'll copy the application, we'll start our npm service. And then we have the Jenkins file. So this is our CI/CD pipeline definition. Now this is written in Groovy, and this lives right next to our code in GitLab. Now this will tell Jenkins exactly what steps to execute. So you can see we are checking out the code, we are building the image, we will log into Docker Hub, we will tag and push the image, we will stop and remove any existing containers. Then we will create a new container, and then finally we will tell whether the pipeline execution was successful or not. So all this code is stored in our GitLab repository, which will be the central hub for our changes. So here I have my Jenkins. So this is my controller node, and I have another instance running here, which will be used as my application server. So basically two different machines. So Jenkins is running on a different server. It's running in the Mumbai region. So in case you want to see, I would be happy to show that. So let me change the region to Mumbai, and we should be able to see the instance here, which is hosting my Jenkins. And then I have another server running in North Virginia. So this is going to be my application server. Now, we will use Jenkins to tell that I want to deploy my application on this server. So step one would be to first establish the connectivity to this machine from Jenkins. So we'll go to Jenkins, we'll go to manage Jenkins, and we'll go to nodes. And here you can see the built-in node. Now this is the Jenkins node, the controller machine. So we will add a new node, which is my application server. So this is where I want the application to be deployed. So we will create that. So this is the application server. Sorry, application server. So number of executors, let's set it to 3, and then the directory on the machine. So don't make sure you're giving the right path. Even if this folder does not exist, it's fine. Jenkins will create it for us. But make sure this path is correct. And then comes the labels. So this label is important. So in the Jenkins file, if you see this agent label, this is what I'm using. So you'll have to make sure you're using the same label. If you're using something else, then make sure you're using the same name over here. And then usage will be used only when I pass the label name. Launching method would be via SSH. So I want to connect using SSH. So we'll give the public IP, the credentials. So we will need to add the credentials. So click on add Jenkins, and this will be SSH username. So let's call this as app server creds. The username will be Ubuntu because I'm using Ubuntu AMI, and then the PEM file. So let me copy paste the PEM file over here. All right, so I've pasted the PEM file and we will add this. So we will use this for the authentication. And host key verification strategy, this will be manually trusted, and save. Now, before we save this, there are certain prerequisites that we will need to satisfy. So if you go back to the repo, under this, I have these prerequisites. So these are the prerequisites we will need. For now, for the Jenkins to be able to connect to the app server, we need to have Java. At the minimum, we need to have this. Okay. So let's log into the machine. So this is the machine I have, and I think I already have Java on this, but you can install Java by running this particular command. So that should install Java. And once you have your Java installed, you can just click on save. And if you go and check the log, you should be able to see that it is trying to connect to the machine, authenticate, and all those things. So you can see here authentication successful and everything. So give it a few seconds, and your Jenkins should be able to connect to the application server. So we need this because we are telling Jenkins that I want to deploy my application on this application server. So Jenkins needs to be able to talk to that machine. All right. So just give it a few seconds, and we should be able to be good. So you can see this is a Unix agent. That means we are good with this. So if you go back to the nodes, you should be able to see the basically if this goes wrong, you should be able to see a X mark into mark over here. If not, then everything is good. Your Jenkins is able to connect to the machine. Now let's go ahead and create our job, the pipeline job. So we'll go to the home page, click on new item. Let's give it a name. Let's say pipeline underscore demo, and this is going to be a pipeline. So click on OK. You can give it a description. So this is a demo for Jenkins GitLab collaboration, and this is going to be so pipeline script from SCM. So we'll select the Git repo, and we will need to give the git repository URL. So let me go back to the repo, and we'll go to the code, and I'll copy this clone with HTTPS. So we'll paste the URL over here. Now we will need to have the credentials for this repo as well. All right, so Jenkins should be able to authenticate to this repo. So for this, you can click on your user profile, click on edit profile, and here you can see access token. So we will create a new token for this. So click on add new token. Let's give it a name. So let's say Jenkins GitLab collab, and we'll set the necessary permissions. So all the permissions that we need, we will just check mark and then click on create token. So this will create a token for us. So this is important. Don't share this with anyone, and make sure you have stored them in a secure location. So we'll get that token, and we will need to add that over here. So what's your username? So I'll set my username, and then you can give an ID, whatever you want. So let's say GitLab token, and then add. So this will be the authentication to your GitLab. And then the branch, so it's always gonna be your main branch. So if you see here, I'm using only one branch, I don't have any other branches. So we'll set that, and then your script path. So this is important. Make sure you're using following the naming convention, the casing and everything. So Jenkins file is what we are using, and then you can click on save. Now you can test this to see if the job is working fine or not. So before you do that, there's one more step that we will need to do, which is so these are the prerequisites. So we'll need to have Git, we'll need to have Docker, we'll need to set the permissions, and then we will also need to set the Docker Hub credentials. Because if you look at the Jenkins file, the step where we are logged into Docker Hub, it will use that credential to log into our Docker Hub. So we will need to provide the necessary credentials, the right credentials basically. So let's go ahead and add that credential. So for that, we can go to the home page, go to manage Jenkins, and under credentials, you can select, we'll go to global and then add credentials. So this will be a username with password. So what is the username of your GitHub? So sorry, Docker Hub. So I'll pass the credentials over here, and let's say this will be my Docker Hub threads, and we will create that. Now, I think I'll have to change this because this is what we are using, the ID, or I can change the code. Anyway, it's fine. So let me just go ahead and change that here. Oh, looks like I can't change that. Oh, looks like I can't change that. So let me just delete this, and I can create that once again. So add credentials. So I'll set the username, I'll set the password, and the ID, make sure you follow the ID that you have here. So I'll set that and create. So I'll tell Jenkins to use this to authenticate to my Docker Hub when it will try to push the image to my Docker Hub, which is over here. So let's go back to the job and let's test this. So we'll click on build now, and this should start the first build for us. So you can see obtained Jenkins file from GitLab. So the pipeline code, it's able to get it from Jenkins, from GitLab, and it will basically execute whatever the instructions that we have there. All right, so here you can see this job is running on the application server, which is the instance, this particular server. And if you go through this, you should be able to see that it is checking out the code from GitLab, code checked out successfully, building the Docker image. So this is where Docker is being used. Then logging into Docker Hub, and then logged into the Docker Hub, tagging the image, pushing the image to Docker Hub, and then stopping any existing container. So you can see try to remove a container, and then running a new container, and finally the pipeline finished. So if you go to the Docker Hub, if I refresh this, I should be able to see my new image pushed by my Jenkins job. So over here, so you can see this was pushed 2 minutes ago. So my pipe is working fine. So every time I run this, the job will pick the code from here and deploy it to my EC2 instance. And if you hit the server, so this is running on port 3000. So if I hit this, I should be able to see the application. So you can see hello CICD, this is version 1, deployed automatically via Jenkins and GitLab. So that's basically your Jenkins and GitLab in action. So this is basically where we are using Jenkins as our code repository, and we are using Jenkins as our CI/CD to get the code from the code repository and then deploy it to my EC2 machine, which is running, which is a different machine altogether. Now, what about the automation? How can I automate this such that every time I make a change to my repo, it should automatically trigger this job, right? I mean, that's where automation comes in. I don't want to trigger this job every time manually. So for that, we can go back to the repo, go to settings, and here you will see webhook. So we will need to add a webhook basically. So click on add webhook, give it a name. So let's say Jenkins pipeline demo. You can give whatever you want, and then the URL. Now for the URL, you should be able to get it from the prerequisite, the right URL that we need. So this is what we will need to pass. So we will need to have the Jenkins user, the API, you will need to create a token, and then the job URL. So to generate the token, we can go to Jenkins. So basically you'll need to go to your user and then click on security. And here you should be able to generate a new token. So click on add new token, give it a name. So let's say Jenkins GitLab, and then click on generate. Now this will generate the token. So copy this particular token. So this is what you will need to pass in your GitLab. All right. So here as part of your URL. So like I said, so it will be Jenkins-user. So Jenkins-user is basically this user. So in my case, admin will be the user. So let's go here. So this would be https://admin, and then colon your token, the one that you have generated, and then add the job URL. All right. So in my case, the job would be this job. All right, so we will take this particular URL. All right, so you can see the format over here, Jenkins host /job name /build. So we will need to pass that. So /build. And then, so we don't need this token because we are passing it in the URL itself. And then when do you want to trigger the job? So in my case, the push event. So whenever we do a push, now you can select all branches or specific branches. So in my case, it's going to be all branches. And then we can add this webhook. Once this is added, we can test it as well, whether the webhook is working or not. So we can click on test and then click on push events. And you should be able to see whether it's able to trigger the job or not. So in my case, it's giving me an error. So let's look at the details. So it says response body is empty, response headers are empty. So let me see what is missing. Okay, see the problem. So this would be HTTP, because you see here this is not secured, so this is HTTP. So I've changed it to HTTP. I'll save the changes, and then let's test it out once again. So push events, and let's see if it's able to trigger the Jenkins job or not. So you can see now it's giving me 201. That means the trigger was successful. So if I refresh this, I should be able to see the third job. So this job is coming from GitLab. So GitLab is triggering this job for me. And again, whatever the pipe you have, you should be able to see that. So basically now every time I make a change to the application code, so now let's say I will change this to the code. Let's change this to something else. So I'm editing it directly in the GitLab. I'm not using the local here. So let me change this to 2.0, and let's commit this, and let's see if this will trigger my Jenkins job or not. So ideally the expectation is it should trigger. So you can see there's my fourth job. So this is where your automation comes in. So every time as a developer or as a DevOps engineer, every time there is a push to your code repository, we are triggering our Jenkins job. So this will always build a new image, delete existing container, create a new container from the new image, and then basically launch the application for us. All right, so you can see stopping and removing old container, running new container, and we should be able to see the new container. So now if I go and refresh the page, I should be able to see 2.0. So that's basically your CICD. So now obviously you can optimize this further. So in this case, if you see, at this point, if I make a change to any file, right, it will trigger my Jenkins job, which is not ideal, right? I want the Jenkins job to be triggered only when I make change to my application. So you can do that as well, right? And then you can also set up notifications to tell like, hey, the deployment was successful, and you can change your the image repository if you want. So there's many things that you can do, but this is a simple example of how we can use leverage the sheer power of GitLab and Jenkins to set up a CI/CD pipeline and deploy our applications automatically every time we make a change to our code. And just like that, we have automated the entire process from code changes to live deployment. We have full automation in place. Now, the benefits of your Jenkins and GitLab approach are very compelling. So you get the flexibility. So you get the deep customization of Jenkins with GitLab's integrated SEM. You get enhanced visibility. So all your code issues and pipeline statuses are centralized in GitLab. You get robust control. So Jenkins can handle complex multi-stage, multi-environment deployments. It's a perfect hybrid solution for organizations that need both powerful automation and a unified DevOps platform. So this isn't just theory. Organizations across various industries leverage robust CI/CD pipelines, from small startups deploying microservices multiple times a day to large enterprises managing complex monolithic applications. CI/CD with tools like Jenkins and GitLab is a cornerstone of modern software delivery. Now, to optimize your CI/CD workflows, there are some best practices that you can follow. So start small and iterate often. Don't try to automate everything at once. Build a basic pipeline and then add complexity incrementally. Version control everything. So your pipeline definitions like Jenkins file or GitLab YAML file should be in version control, just like your code. Automate your test cases. So the more tests you automate, the more confidence you will have in your deployments. Keep your pipelines fast. So slow pipelines defeat the purpose. Optimize build times, run tests in parallel, and use caching wherever possible. Monitor and log. So have robust monitoring and logging for your pipelines to quickly identify and troubleshoot any failures. And finally, treat infrastructure as code. So automate the provisioning of your infrastructure using tools like Terraform or Ansible within your CI/CD. So the future of CI/CD is constantly evolving. We are seeing trends like DevSecOps, integrating security testing throughout the pipeline. So more advanced AI or ML driven insights for pipeline optimization, and increasing adoption of cloud native tools and serverless deployments for to further abstract infrastructure complexities. So it's an exciting space that you have. So there you have it, demystifying CI/CD pipelines with Jenkins and GitLab. By understanding how these powerful tools integrate, you can streamline your development and deployment processes, release faster, and build more reliable software. It's not magic, it's all automation. That's all I have for this session. If you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more content, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss on the next video. Let me know in the comments if you prefer Jenkins, GitLab, or a combination, and what's your favorite CI/CD trick is. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.